Hi guys, Michael Abayemi here, and today I'm doing a review and a recap of the fourth episode of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So this recap is coming a bit later than usual, mainly because I was busy over the weekend working on my Mortal Kombat review. If you haven't watched that review, I'll have a card up for it somewhere over here on the screen, so be sure to check it out and let me know what you thought about the movie when you get the chance to see it. Also, it goes without saying, but if you haven't seen the fourth episode of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier by this point, then be sure to come back after you've seen it, because we'll be touching upon spoilers in this review. And with that out of the way, let's get on with the review. So there's actually a lot to unpack in this episode of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I'll start from the very beginning. The episode opens with a flashback to Wakanda, and I have to admit that the moment I saw the name Wakanda on the screen, my heart kind of skipped a beat. I was wondering that, okay, are we actually going to get to see a cameo from Chadwick Boseman? But as it turns out, it was just a scene between Bucky and Ayo from the Dora Milaje, and it was showing how Ayo was helping Bucky recuperate after he'd been in the Winter Soldier program, like helping him overcome his fear of the codes that turned him into the Winter Soldier. So, and this flashback sequence more or less tied into the opening of the episode, where Ayo was confronting Bucky for freeing Zemo in the last episode. And she was like, this was the man responsible for killing their king, and they felt shame for the fact that they were unable to prevent it, so they were demanded to bring him to justice. So Ayo more or less gave him 8 hours to sort out whatever they were doing before she and the rest of the Dora Milaje would come for him. So Bucky takes this information back to Sam and Zemo, and while they were contemplating what their next move would be, Sam remembered that after his auntie had passed when he was a kid, they'd had like a kind of memorial service for her. So he was kind of like speculating that in a similar vein, the Flag Smashers, Carly specifically, will have a memorial service for the Donia woman she looked up to. So, and this was supposed to be like their next lead. So they decide to start asking around, and Zemo takes them to where they can actually get the information. But upon getting there, they are met with a bit of resistance as nobody actually trusted them, and of course the resistance was trying to protect the Flag Smashers, and it was proving difficult to get information from them. But Zemo, being Zemo, like had a way around their skepticism, and he went directly to the kids, bribing them with some candy, and with that he was able to get information about exactly where and when the funeral was going to take place. But rather than share this information with Sam and Bucky, he keeps it to himself, using it as leverage, just in case things go sour later on in the episode. But before they are able to get to the funeral, they are intercepted by John and Lemar, and the two of them were more or less like accusing them for breaking Zemo out of prison, and they had to like convince him that they actually needed Zemo to get to the Flag Smashers, and John is reluctant to allow them proceed, but in the absence of a better lead, they had no choice but to see how that particular one would shape up. So Sam is able to infiltrate the particular funeral they were having for Donia, and his plan, his goal here was to be able to talk to her alone, to reason with her and see if there was a way that he could get her off the path she was currently on, that destructive path that she was on. So, and while they were talking, they actually got to reveal that they had quite a lot in common, like they had similar goals. Sam was actually not against her goal, but he was against the means she was using to get, or rather the method she was using to get to those goals. So that was where their conflict was coming from. But before he is able to get through to her, John interrupts the meeting and Carly escapes. And in the midst of all the commotion, she drops the vials for the super serum that she had left. And Zemo, seeing what was contained in those vials, quickly takes the opportunity to start destroying the super soldier serum. But just before he was able to finish destroying all the vials, he's interrupted by John, who knocks him out and keeps the last vial for himself. It was at this point that John demanded to take Zemo back into custody, since he believed they had gotten all the information they could get out of him. And just before he's able to make any moves, the Dora Milaje arrive just like clockwork, and they too demand to have Zemo brought to justice for killing their king. And as the new Captain America was trying to brush them off, a fight breaks out between the Dora Milaje and Captain America and Lemar, and it was quite clear that he was terribly outclassed by them, like he was beating like a little kid, and he was ready to he could actually do. And the funniest part about the whole scene was how Zemo was just there sipping his coffee, and even Sam and Bucky were reluctant to join in. But eventually Bucky joins in, but even him himself wasn't really a match for the Dora Milaje, because the way Ayo was able to quickly disarm him, like literally took his arm off and he was just incapacitated right there. And in the middle of all the scuffle, Zemo was able to escape, and John actually had hit an all-time low. He actually made a remark that these were actually just regular human beings. It wasn't like the previous episode where they were beaten by the Flag Smashers who had the super soldier serum. So you could actually tell from that point that he was conflicted. Like he had this like responsibility placed upon him, and he was starting to have what I would assume was imposter syndrome. He was starting to feel like he wasn't really worthy to take up that mantle of Captain America as well. And just from how everything was going, I could already tell that he was contemplating whether or not to take the super soldier serum, the outcome of which was not revealed until later in the episode. In the following scene, Carly calls Sam's sister in a bid to arrange a meeting between the two of them, using threats of violence against her and her family in order to make it happen. So Sam has no choice but going in to reason with her once again, but Bucky insists on following along just in case things go south once again. But while the three of them are busy trying to hash out how to resolve their differences, Sharon, who had been keeping an eye on things using a satellite, discovers that John Walker was on the move, and it was shown that he was actually in a direct confrontation with the Flag Smashers at that point. And it was in this moment that it was revealed that he had actually taken the super soldier serum, as he was actually going toe-to-toe with the Flag Smasher he was fighting with. But Carly intervenes, and in the midst of all the commotion, she ends up killing Lamar, and this was pretty much the breaking point for John Walker. He pretty much went all out, like he was unleashed at that point, and you could see him jumping out of the window, chasing after one of the Flag Smashers. And in that pivotal final scene of the episode, the scene that everybody is pretty much talking about, you could see him going in for the kill, and that final shot of the episode with the bloody shield and everybody looking in shock was enough to send chills down Carly's spine. It was obvious that she had pretty much underestimated the length that John Walker would be willing to go, and at this point she had no choice but just to retreat for the moment. So overall, I would say that this episode was a nice compliment to the previous one we got, and going back to even check, I saw that it was actually the same writer that wrote the last one, the writer from the John Wick movies. So you could actually see the same DNA stretch out between these two episodes with the emphasis on the fight scenes, and this is like the height of it. This is like the pinnacle of the show from the way things are going. And to think that we only have 2 more episodes to go after this, it's actually quite a mystery how they're going to resolve everything within the span of those 2 episodes. But as things currently stand, the main question I still have that doesn't seem to have been addressed yet is who actually the power broker is. Because this is a figure that was featured prominently in the previous episode, and up to now, we don't know who that is. There's a lot of like speculation on the internet that the power broker might actually end up being Sharon herself. But I actually think, contrary to that, that Sharon might be working for the power broker, but I don't think that she's actually the power broker herself. And in anticipation of the next episode, which should be out in just 2 days from now, Marvel themselves dropped an updated trailer for the entire show, and it gave us like a little glimpse of what we can expect in the next episode or in the next 2 episodes. So we have this like scene where we have both Bucky and Sam confronting John Walker, and there was like this standoff, and John Walker was like, "You guys don't want to do this," and the way Bucky looks up and he was like, "Yes, we do." You can just tell that there's a very big confrontation about to happen. So looking at the show so far, it is obvious that the focus is still on Sam making that like journey to accepting that he would become the next Captain America. Because from his resistance in the beginning to seeing the repercussions of failing to take up the responsibility and now having to deal with those repercussions, to be actually curious to see if at the end of the day he actually accepts to become the next Captain America, or if they throw a curveball and maybe they manage to redeem John Walker in some way. But I don't think there's any redeeming him after that final shot with the blood on the shield and everything. So but it will be very interesting to see how everything goes based on everything we've gotten thus far. And with all that said, if I was to rate the 4th episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'll give it an 8 out of 10, the very same rating I gave the last one. So but those are just my thoughts about the episode. What did you think about this episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed watching this review, and to subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more reviews like this in the future. And until the next one, this is Michael, signing off.